And we drove up. And we drove up to the little window, and I don't know if any of you have ever done this before, but I just happened to be looking in, and there was this one young woman in there making her Cokes. And I had never seen this before, but she had kind of an automated Coke machine. And what she did was, and some of you are nodding because you've seen it, I had never seen this before. Instead of doing anything, she punched a little thing into a computer, and there was a little, like, conveyor belt. And she punched the buttons in, and it started up, and these two cups dropped down, a large cup and a medium cup into these little containers in the belt, and it moved to the next station. It went chugga, 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 chugga. And then it went to this ice dispenser. And then the big cup was there first, and then one little pop of ice came out, and then chugga, chugga, chugga. And then the medium cup was there, and one little drop of ice came out, chugga, chugga, chugga. And then it went over to the dispenser for the Coke. And it poured the Coke in, and the Coke in, and the machine kind of went chugga, 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 and it came around, and finally came around to the little side here, and she put the tops on, and started walking over to hand us the Cokes. And I turned to my wife, and I said, you know, there wasn't much ice in those Cokes. And my wife said, I noticed the same thing, just one little plop of ice in each one, even the big one. So I didn't think anything of it. So the young lady had the two Cokes in her hand, and she kind of pushed them out through that little window to hand them to us. And I turned to her, sitting in my car, and I said, could we please have some more ice? And this poor young thing stood there with these two Cokes and just looked at me. And she said, what? I said, ice. We would like some more ice. There wasn't much ice in the sodas. Could we please have some more ice? And she just stood there for a second. And she said, I'll be right back. She put the Cokes down, and she left. I'm not making any of this up. She came back, and this young man came in with her, who I guess was the manager, because he had this sign on that said manager. And he opened the little window, and he said, what's the problem? I said, there's no problem. We just want some more ice in the Cokes. There wasn't much ice. And the manager looked at me, and then he looked at this woman, and they kind of shrugged their shoulders. And this is the truth. He picked up the cups, he took them over to a sink, and he poured them out. He then went back over, took these two empty cups, put them in a little conveyor. He was going to start to push the buttons, and then realized, if I push the buttons again, now all of my inventory is all messed up, because it's all on the computer now, right? So I swear to you, he started to yank the little conveyor by hand. And he yanked it over, and it went under the ice thing. And he pushed the little button, and the ice went in. And then he pushed it again for some more ice. And he pushed it again. And while he's pushing this button about 12 times, he's looking over at me going, we won't get into that part. Anyway. So he puts it, and then he yanks the little thing over, he pushes the thing, puts the Coke in it, and then he takes the cups out, and he puts the same tops back on them again, and he opens the little door, and he hands me these two crumbled up cups of Coke with virtually no Coke, but a lot of ice, and hands them to me, and he walks away. And I turned to my wife, and I said, what planet are we on? What just happened? These poor young people working in that store had been told one way to make a Coke. And if anybody came in and said, I don't want my Coke that way, they had no clue what to do. Because they had only been told one way to get things done. And sometimes what happens is when we're in charge of people and organizations and processes, we have a tendency to tell them only what we think they know to get the job done, and we never give them any leeway to use their brains to do anything. We want to give you some ideas to help make you successful as a chapter leader. And here's one thing that you need to do to be a successful leader. You've got to let them make ice. When you go out and ask other people to help you in your chapter, to serve on your board, to serve on your committee, you got to make sure that you don't focus in on, here's what I want you to do, here's how I want you to do it, do you have any questions, because this is the way we do it. What you've got to do is you've got to be able to tell them where you want to go Give them some tools to be successful and let them use some of their own skill and their own talent to get it done. Because one of the things we have to remember in leadership is that delegation is a leadership skill. And delegation is one of the hardest things to learn in a volunteer organization. Because some of us may not be supervisors in our jobs. Some of us may not have different tasks to do like we do in our chapter. But delegation is an important skill.